All right, folks, welcome back to Hit or Miss Doctor Who, the podcast where we dive into the weird, wild, and occasionally wibbly-wobbly world of the Doctor. Today we're tackling a real classic, 1972's Day of the Daleks. And let me tell you, it's got everything. Time travel, political intrigue, and of course, Daleks doing what they do best, being absolute menaces. Joining me today, as always, is my partner in Who Crime, the man with all the best Dalek impressions and the name that's only 3 letters away. Coincidence? DK, welcome.
Hello, Mike.
Yes, that's an Ogron, not a Dalek, but I will allow it. You did, you did promise you were going to do that.
I am no Nick Briggs.
And of course, we couldn't talk Daleks without bringing in a true expert. He proved his credentials in our review of the Dalek invasion of Earth. And now returning to the Hit or Miss TARDIS, we've got the guy who's probably got more Dalek memorabilia than the BBC, Cliff Chapman. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you very much. I wish I did. I've got a few of the B&M ones on my shelf behind me. Yes, I've seen collections that make mine pale.
Yes, I don't have many, but I do love what I've got. And I was watching Doctor Who Unleashed yesterday, and not only did I get excited because Russell T Davies has the same Doctor Who poster as me, but he's also got the same B&M Dalek Invasion of Earth Dalek set on one of his desks. I was like, yay!
Do you know the really sad thing is that Mike texted me a picture saying, "I have the same poster as RTD," and I was like, "Oh, it's funny you should say that," and then sent him a picture of the pajamas I was sitting in.
It's with the same poster. I'll put it up on screen. It's the famous Lost in Time and Space comic book cover poster. I'm sure everybody probably has it.
I think I saw it on Blue Sky. Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't have any room for posters at the moment because I have a very, very small office, but it's entirely full of shelves, some of which are very much jury-rigged shelves. So it's like,
as long as you've got a Dalek or two,
yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, cool. I'll put the camera on. Yeah.
Oh, nice, awesome.
It's a bit of a mess, but yeah.
Nice. Oh, I do love a good merchandise collection.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. Oh, brilliant. I'll probably have a picture of my one kind of shelving unit that I have devoted to Doctor Who. It's only got DVDs, Blu-rays, and then a bunch of those small Dalek and Cybermen that you got with the monthly magazine.
Oh, yeah, but clean and tidy and nice to look at, yes.
Oh, yeah, they're all lined up together. I mean, the Cybermen behind the Daleks because they're taller, obviously. So.
Yeah.
Actually, weirdly enough, I think if I can stop sharing the screen, my profile picture is actually a picture of the gold Dalek from Day of the Daleks in model form. So I'm just taking pictures of whichever Dalek is relevant in every given week. So there you go. Anyway, that's so sad. People have tuned out now, just like this is beyond geeky. But anyway, before we get into the main review and before we hit you with another round of the infamous hit or miss segment, let's ease in with a little something to get us all in the mood. That's right. Once more, we're heading into the vortex. So we were having a little talk off air, and we've all already basically given our favourite Doctor Who stories, what introduced us to the show, and our favourite Dalek story overall. So it was occurring to me that at time of recording, we've all just about seen the first episode of Series 15/Season 2 of Doctor Who. And myself and DK can't really give our opinions because we're under an exclusive contract to share them with the Pasty Sheep Nerd Bible podcast that we're recording in a day or so's time. So, but we do have a guest here, so we could always ask you, Cliff, for your opinion. So did you see the Robot Revolution and what did you make of it?
I did. I was doing a 12-hour day in my other job later on, but I was up at 8:30 a.m. because I'm in the Netherlands, so I'm an hour ahead of you guys. And so I sat down in front of Disney Plus and I watched Disney Plus tick over at 8:59 from one series of Doctor Who is available to episode 1 of season 2 of Doctor Who is available. And then I watched the Robot Revolution, and I was very excited because I thought the trailer for season 2 was fantastic. And then at 6 minutes in, I did a swear, and I did a slightly annoyed Blue Sky skeet bloot, whatever you call it, and then I just watched the episode in a slightly less enthusiastic way. I will say that I thought Belinda was absolutely fantastic. She's probably the best companion we've had in years. I did enjoy Millie, but she didn't have a great deal of character, whereas I feel like we kind of know what Belinda's about straight away, which is like good Russell T Davies writing. I think it's a little bit sad. She was about the only character that really had a lot to do, because there were other people in it, but I'm not sure I go as far as to say there were other characters. So yeah, I thought the story, you know, I'm doing that old school fan. It could have been a two-parter, because it was.
Could it?
There was a lot going on.
I guess. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I thought it looked beautiful. You know, the design was great. I'm playing Atomfall, the sort of British Fallout at the moment on the PlayStation, and the Bard robots in that are rather similar to the robots of the Robot Revolution. I quite enjoyed the sort of the similarity, that lovely retro vibe, you know, that kind of shape. So I thought they looked great. And yeah, I think it needs a rewatch. I've only seen it once.
Okay,
you know,
okay, fair enough.
You know, 20 years ago, I might have watched it 6 times by now. Got a job, and we went for a walk in the tulip fields today.
Oh, well, you've got to do that if you're living in the Netherlands. That's like a law.
Well, I say by the tulip fields. Horrible people walk in the tulip fields and trample them all. We were good. But yes.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, I feel it's okay, apart from the bit with the cat. Which
yes,
it may be a very clever Russell T Davies going, oh, you know that writing cliche, save the cat. Well, I'm going to make a joke about that. That's what the fan writing will say 20 years time, and then it will just like, no, I didn't think of that. I'm just a git.
Flawless impression. Yeah, I was worried the audience wouldn't know what you were talking about, but yeah, 6 or 7 minutes in, there was the evaporation of a cat. Although we didn't actually see the cat, we just kind of saw the after effects of it.
It was enough. It was enough.
And I'm almost going to say it was worth it. This is my one bit of review I'll give, because there was something about Varida's fantastic comedy delivery of, do you know Lucy at number 42? Tell her that her cat's gone to live on a farm.
I missed that line because I was too angry.
Really? Oh, it was so good. It's like Mrs. Flood sees her getting carried away, and she's all like harassed and like, tell her a cat got like sent to a farm. I'm the queen of outer space, if you can believe it. And my poor parents, just tell them I'm being kidnapped by robots. And Mrs. Flood just like, oh, God bless you, Belinda. Bye bye. Bye bye.
You ain't seen me, right?
Yeah, exactly. As I said to DK, yes, an entire generation all did the same thing when she did that. We all made the same joke, doing her best Fast Show impression. You ain't seen me, right?
We spent a good 20 minutes ascribing new Fast Show characters to Mrs. Flood.
Yep, next week she's going to be in a mariachi band and hosting jazz club one week, you know, things along those lines.
As someone who grew up in the Isle of Man, hello, I'm from the Isle of Man.
Deviants!
Oh, and I said we're just the ultimate big revelation in the just before the episode finale is just going to be like, ain't destroying all of reality. Brilliant! I could do that all day. We made way more jokes than that, but I wouldn't subject the audience to anymore, especially if you're not Fast Show fans or familiar with it. But yeah, fair enough. So one last question then. So what are you making so far of Shooty? I know it's only one episode in, but you're still liking the 15th? If indeed you did like the 15th Doctor?
I think he's good. I think there's some moments that are better than others. I think sometimes he really nails the doctorishness, and other times... it kind of gets carried, you know, there's so much happening with the story. I do sometimes worry he's a bit too young. If you know what I mean, it'd be really lovely to sort of see him in his 40s, but maybe that's just because I'm in my 40s. it's when you grow up with Doctor Who. I liked his linen space get up on the planet. I thought he looked very good in that. I thought there's the modern blue kilt with the tartan top just looks stupid. Sorry, it's really? Like one or the other, one half or the other with something else maybe, but not both together. It's like, you know, when you're making Colin Baker look like really debonair. You know, I mean, maybe it's, you know, this is the love that Colin Baker always deserved, and you know, it's sort of retroactively saying no, he did dress quite well actually.
Let's not get carried away. I mean, you know, Doctor Who and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was still pretty dodgy from that era, but yeah.
But the silhouette, I might have liked a little bit more of a doctorish silhouette.
Yeah, I mean, You're clearly just defending him because of the cat brooch.
Yes. That's the Doctor that would have taken a stand against cat violence. Oh no, he didn't see it, did he? But yeah,
exactly. Oh well, that's fair enough. I had a similar thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I hope they do like a Perry in Trial of a Time Lord, and he goes back in the last episode and saves the cat.
That would be amazing, just because it's such a minor moment that nobody in the audience would really be like, what? And you'd just be cheering like, yes, save the series.
Yeah, I might write a Big Finish audio and pitch it.
Oh, you've got to do something about, I don't know what this is because I'm not a particularly great writer on the spot, but something about how that cat was actually saved and then evolved into the cat nuns from way back in like series 2.
Yeah.
Anyway. Big Finish will be all over that. That's like a 3-series thing going on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just to clarify to viewers who might not have caught my first name, I'm not Chris Chapman that writes Big Finish audio, so this is pure fantasy. I'm the other one that doesn't.
Yeah. And I have no connection to Big Finish, and I'll be honest, probably never will. I've been very critical of their pricing more than once, so I doubt they're going to hire me anytime soon.
Oh, they got a good sale on this week. Some nice cheap stuff on download.
I do keep having a look for what might be coming up, but I don't know. I'm willing to pay anything for the upcoming 13th Doctor because I love her, and 9th Doctor and Rose stuff. So I'm just waiting to see when they're going to get a release and do it from there, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I had a similar moment when you were saying like because we're of a certain age, you weren't really responding to Millie or to Shooty being a bit younger. I had a similar thing with the new companion with Belinda when it opened and it said like 17 years ago, and she was clearly at least 17 years old, and I was like, oh my god, a companion who's not 17.
Yeah.
This makes a change.
Yeah, which is great until you realise that 17 years ago was like 2008. And then you're like, oh my god, I was 26 in 2008 or 25, 26. Yeah, 26.
Yeah, there was something depressing about the fact that when they were interviewing Millie Gibson, she was like, oh, and I've never known Doctor Who not be on the air because I was born after 2005. And I was just like, shut up, just go away.
It's like crumbles into dust.
Anyway, so I mean that's probably all we can really say. What a place to end it. I feel like Clarkson, and on that bombshell, we'll end the Into the Vortex, and we'll go for the infamous hit or miss section. So if you bear with me, I'll get ready to do that as we head to hit or miss.
How I hate these hit or miss performances.
Right. So you've done this before, Cliff. You were here for Dalek Invasion of Earth. GK, you're an old pro at this. You've been here for many an episode.
I'm an old pro in general, mate. Don't worry.
But if there are any new listeners, the hit or miss section is basically just where I pick a random thing from somewhere in the universe, spit it out, ask our, myself, my co-host, and the guest here what they think, if it's a hit or a miss, debate it back and forth if necessary, and then decide on a consensus if we can. Not that we ever really have too much problem with that. And I've mixed in. We're going to do 4 this week because we're doing another, fairly long classic series review. So I've only got 4, and I've made at least half of them Dalek related to fit into the theme. So yeah, it's 50-50. There's 2 Dalek related and 2 not so much. And I'm going to start with hit or miss for Rusty the Good Dalek, as featured in Into the Dalek and briefly in Twice Upon a Time. Hit or miss. And Cliff, you're the guest. We'll come to you first.
He's all right. It's always that kind of weird thing with a good Dalek, like Into the Dalek. Is he that good, really? I think he's Rusty the morally complex Dalek.
Yeah, well, it's a very low bar for Daleks, to be fair, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And there's part of the reason I'd sort of slightly forgotten him. There isn't a toy of him, is there? I don't think.
I don't think so. No.
I might have remembered him more easily if he was on my shelf. Yeah, fine. I'd say a hit because he's not a miss because he didn't offend me or annoy me.
Okay, but you can't even remember.
I do remember him now, but he doesn't live in my thoughts day to day. Bless him.
Do you recall him coming back in Twice Upon a Time, or is that like, oh yeah, that happened?
There was a lot going on there. Yeah, he's there for like 20 seconds, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, it's just the Doctor needs to go to some kind of library to retrieve information. He's like, oh, a Dalek, that'll do. I'll access the pathweb because I happen to know a dude, and he's like, yeah, okay, that one quote unquote good Dalek will help you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Handles as well, same sort of.
Well, Handles was quality. Handles was a nice, he was friendly. He was nice. We like Handles.
We like Handles. Yeah. Rusty the Good Dalek. Yeah. We need more. Maybe we need a 6-part Big Finish box set to really get.
Oh God, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But no, I did love Handles. But my favorite thing about Handles is that he was voiced by Kay Van Novak. But I just think if only he was doing his Nando voice from What We Do in the Shadows, it would have improved that just exponentially.
I did not know that.
No.
I thought it was Nick Briggs. I just assumed it's always Nick Briggs for voices.
Yeah, no. Kay Van Novak doing the voice. I want him to re-record it now and just be like, Doctor, I've been stuck on this planet for years. I came here from Al-Qaeda. Now I'm on the Christmas planet.
Gilmore.
Guillermo, where are you? Oh, no, he got killed. Yes. And any excuse to mention What We Do in the Shadows. Quality show.
I love that.
It's such a good show. Anyway, I can't believe we didn't even know that was him. Random guest.
That's a brilliant fact.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel like I've achieved something here today. Then. So there we go. DK, back to Rusty the Good Dalek. What are your thoughts on this thing?
He's again like.
What was that noise?
Yeah, that's right. That was a dying ogre. Like Cliff, I'd kind of forgotten him, to be honest, but he was all right. He didn't make an impression either, terrible or amazing, but it was okay. So I'll say hit. I'll be a generous. So
okay. Well, I'm not going to be generous, and it doesn't matter now anyway because we've already said hit from 2 out of 3. But I think he's a miss. I just think I didn't like Into the Dalek. I think it's a terribly written episode, and like you said, I don't understand this whole logic of like, oh, he's a good Dalek when really no, he's not particularly. And it's just and then when he came back in Twice Upon a Time purely to deliver the whole, I'm not a good Dalek. You'd make a good Dalek. I'm like, oh, Moffat, get out of your own ass for half a second, man. Honestly. In the middle of a heartfelt, beautiful episode, and you have to chuck lines like that in, honestly. So, not particularly fond of Rusty, I have to say. It's just not memorable. I mean, there are other Dalek characters that I think, like the character in Dalek is more memorable than this. And all he basically does is cry about being human and kill himself.
Yeah, I will say, I will agree with you on that one.
Anyway, so I mean, overall, we're going to say hit from the podcast, but for me, I have to say personally, not fond, to be perfectly honest. I really don't like that episode, Into the Dalek. I think it was a complete misfire.
No, it's. I think Capaldi's a bit too harsh all the way through. You don't really get the arc of light and shade. It's just,
yeah. That whole "don't be lasagna" speech is just cruel. It's just,
lasagna's lovely.
Really, no, but I wouldn't want to become it.
I would.
Fair enough. All right.
I don't know why I said that.
It's late. We're all tired. We've all been exhausted from watching 70s Doctor Who. We've all gone a little bit carried away on gorgonzola and wine. It's
you really should try some of this lasagna, Joe. It's absolutely delicious.
Anyway, this is a great thing to now be going with us. We're all slightly off kilter. So do not get in the comments, people, if you have a thought on this one. Hit or miss. This isn't Dalek related, but I wanted to share it. Hit or miss for the character of Yasmin Khan. Oh dear, I can already hear the furious keyboard warriors. DK, over to you first.
I liked her. It's probably because I've got I had a crush on Mandy Pennyway.
Who doesn't have a crush on Mandy Guild?
Yeah, so sometimes okay, sometimes it took a little while to kind of get used to her. To be fair, if it was a choice between her and Graham, I mean, I would rather have Graham as the companion, but
really?
She were all right. And oh god, yeah. But I think she kind of grew as the series went on, and I know some people didn't like the path they took with regards to her.
Dear.
But
stop commenting, people. Stop commenting. We're not asking your opinions.
But But yeah, I kind of liked her, and she, and she kind of developed as a character, came into her own, and yeah, I find myself kind of missing her.
So will you be checking out the audio with Jodie and Mandip then when it comes out?
Probably not, because I just can't afford those things. But I'll be there in spirit.
So that's now both of us not working for Big Finish. Awesome. Okay, Cliff, over to you. What are your thoughts on this character?
Oh no. Well, I might be a little controversial and sort of say the character of Yasmin Khan seems a little bit generous, because I don't really ever think I ever noticed any character apart from policewoman for the first episode and then fancies Doctor Who for the last couple of episodes. I think she's slightly better in Flux, but the problem with the entire Jodie Whittaker era is that you've got 3 companions, which doesn't work in a 45-minute episode. It does work in a 6 or 7-parter in the 1960s, but it doesn't work in a 45-minute thing, because they just stand around saying, "What's going on?" And then the Doctor says, "Oh, I don't know what's going on," until the Doctor says, "Oh, actually, I know what's going on." And
that's quite a good impression.
I went, there's drama school money wasn't wasted. It was. But yeah, basically, I didn't really enjoy the companions of the Jodie Whittaker era, just because I just didn't really think they do anything. I think Yaz gets a lot of speeches, or like other characters, the Doctor and the other companions say, "Oh, Yaz is so great," and there's like various scenes where Graham's like, "Oh, you're so brilliant, Yaz, you do this and you do that," and it was like, all that stuff must have been off screen. Couldn't we have seen the scenes where she like did anything other than like sound vaguely concerned, but not really that concerned about stuff? So she's a miss for me. I'm sorry. She's a miss.
Okay. Well, at least honesty is always the best policy. I'll first counteract the whole "they had 3 companions" thing, because they had 2.5. One of them was Ryan. Let's not get carried away. So...
Oh yeah. It's like K9, I suppose.
I was just going to say it is like the human equivalent of having handles there. It's like, what did you say? Shut up. Jeez.
It's awful, but his primary motivation will forever for me be, "I've learned to ride a bike." And that's about as memorable as he gets to me.
Let's go have chips. Never mind. But no, I am number 1 Yasmin Khan defender, not just because I have a huge crush on Mandip, but just because I hear this argument a lot, and I'm not here to dispute the idea of not having a character, but I saw bits and pieces in there. Maybe I'm being generous because I saw what I wanted to see and I extrapolated a lot, but I really related to her kind of mental health struggles, for example, which came up in season 12. The whole "Can You Hear Me" episode I thought was really beautiful, and it was a nice kind of exploration of why the character decided to become policewoman, as opposed to just, generic, "we need to give you a job and it has to be something related to law." So I thought that was a nice touch. And I love some of her little moments, like, I really like her joke of all things. It's a throwaway joke, but in Ascension of the Cybermen, when she's like, "Oh, I'm from Yorkshire," that's practically a love letter. That's one of Chibnall's best lines, and it's a throwaway joke, So I kind of love all that. And I think I kind of agree with you that I don't think having 3 companions works and in a 45-minute sort of area. And I don't think Chibnall has the skill to do the thing which good writers of the 3 companions did in like the Davison era, where you split them all off into different places and, they get their own thing to do, then come together. I think he didn't really balance that. But I do think that when it became just Yaz and Dan, it became infinitely better, because obviously it's easier to write for 2 companions than it is. And frankly, John Bishop is a better actor than the combined Bradley Walsh and Tosin Cole. So, not that that's difficult. But, so yeah, I kind of loved where it went with that. I wish it kind of went into a little bit more of her exploring, discovering her sexuality and the repression of it and whatever else. But I realized it was never going to, because as soon as that comes up, a certain section of the audience, like I said, immediately logs on and talks about how Doctor Who became too woke for them. So they weren't really ever going to deal with that. But I thought it was a nice sort of touch, and I adore the power of the Doctor, and I really felt that last moment with the Doctor just eating ice cream on the TARDIS. I was in floods of tears, because I'm a big softie, and mock as you all surely will. But I felt that anyway, and I thought, yeah, I love Yaz as a companion. One of my favorites, actually. I know I'm alone on that island, but I'll defend her anyway and say, yay! That means it's a hit, because DK slightly agreed with me. So yeah. But no, I mean, valid points to your point, Cliff. You're not wrong. You feel what you feel, and yeah, at least you were respectful about it and didn't just go whoosh, woke. didn't watch it anymore after that. Turned woke.
No, I love woke. I just want the woke to be good.
It's one well written woke.
Yes.
So with that controversy out of the way, let's move on to. I've got two stories, one Dalek related and one not. We'll start with the Dalek one. This was actually going to be on the hit or miss section when Will was on, but he basically gave us his thoughts on it already, so I thought I'd save it for another time. So hit or miss for the story, The Chase. Cliff, I'll come to you first this time.
Oh, I've completely flipped. So I thought when I was in my teens and my 20s, I thought The Chase was shonky, badly made rubbish, and I found it very easy to hate on it because it was in no way as serious and proper grown-up adult Doctor Who as the Daleks and the Dalek Invasion of Earth and the Dalek Master Plan and Evil. And then basically I sort of mellowed to it. And then I think when it came out on DVD and then Blu-ray, they did this whole thing of, we're fixing lots of the little mock-ups. So, we've taken out some of the bumps and the clunks and the things. And they sort of made this very slick version. And it looks quite good. But also then I started getting all nostalgic and all kind of fond. It's like, I wish we could have like the original untouched version on it as well. And I think basically it is odd because it has like Richard Martin's usual kind of thing of just not putting enough music on things and putting quite light and silly music on. So it does kind of kill the drama a little bit sometimes when there is drama. And there's a lot of comedy, which kind of when you're a very serious minded teenage fan, you don't like, and then you kind of chill out and it's kind of like, actually that is quite charming. And yeah, basically as I've got older, I think the last episode of The Chase is absolutely fantastic. I think Ian and Barbara, the whole thing is beautifully done, their performances, the writing of it, I do think David Whittaker saved a lot of Terry Nation stuff and developed it. And I do wonder, like, a lot of the good stuff we celebrate about Terry Nation might have been David Whittaker. And I think Dennis Spooner in his own way was maybe a little different, but, he came to it when it was necessary. So yes, The Chase is a hit for me now, but was not always so.
Awesome. This is tangentially related, but I'm kind of curious. Did you watch the Daleks animated miniseries that came out to tie in with Time Lord Victorious, which is about the only place I can remember other than this seeing the what are they called?
Mechanoids.
Mechanoids. There we go.
Oh yes, it was interesting. I watched it and I quite enjoyed it, but it didn't really stick in my memory. I couldn't tell you what much happened about the characters and stuff. It wasn't something that kind of stuck with me. I thought it was very computer game graphics, cutscenes. So
the look of it wasn't great.
Yeah, I didn't think it was terrible. I thought Dreamland, I thought it was a step up from Dreamland or some other animations I've seen. I would like to see more. Yeah, I'd happily see more of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel bad criticizing because it is free to watch on YouTube, so it's not like we paid anything for it. But yeah, looks wise, not the greatest animation, but I just was pleased to see the mechanoids again because, like I said, it seems like an age. And I'll come to it when I get to my thoughts properly. But my primary thought after The Chase is just like the mechanoids are really cool. Why have they not made any return appearances since this?
Yeah.
So, anyway, DK, I'll come to you. Sorry, not Cliff. You were saying sorry.
Oh, it's just, I think the sheer size of them compared to the tiny size of studios probably made it a no-go because they're huge.
No, that's fair enough. But it's been a long time since the series came back in 2005. And if you're looking for things to have, a return, you don't want to have the obvious kind of Daleks and Cybermen all the time. Let's do a mechanoid story. So, and I think they did do them quite well in that animated thing. The way they were written was decent. They did a good job of it. But you don't have to. I think I'd like to see them in an episode where it's not just all about them being at war with the Daleks. I think you could do something with them on their own. So anyway,
cool.
Again, that's a really geeky thing to admit, I think. But I like them. I'm gutted I missed out on the action figure pack from this, where it has the Daleks and the mechanoids together.
Oh
yeah, on sale. I saw it on sale once in Forbidden Planet. Didn't buy it, and now it's like hundreds of pounds if you want to buy that. And I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's insane on eBay. I've seen that. Yeah.
Anyway, DK, your thoughts on The Chase?
I loved it. there were a few shonky parts, and I'm sorry, Cliff, but if you reverse to shonky, why are you Doctor Who fan in the first place? It's it doesn't hold together, and I'm specifically talking about Peter Purvis's Texas accent. But
I'm going to turn back up in 4 episodes as a different guy.
It's ludicrous. It's absurd. Some of the little sections, like the haunted house, and as I say, the top of the Empire State Building.
Oh, I love all that.
It's not great, but if you go into it with the thought of it's just knockabout fun, then I think you come out really liking it. The weird thing is, the first time I saw this, I was so excited to see the mechanoids, because I remember when I was young, I had a Daleks annual, and it had a comic strip featuring the mechanoids in it. So I'd kind of built them up to this, huge potential, and thinking, oh, I'm finally going to get to see them on TV. And when they turned up, they had that silly little voice that I just thought, okay, this is not what I was expecting. But yeah, I enjoy it from the opening scenes. I enjoy it to, I love the little montage at the end where Ian and Barbara finally get home. It's never going to be considered up there with, Deadly Assassin, City of Death, that kind of thing. But it's fun, and I liked it when Hartnell embraced the more fun side of the character, and it's part of that for me. And I just, I love it. It's a hit for me, definitely.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have a strong consensus, I think, for the first time today, because I like this a lot. I liked it from the start, although I have my own slight issues with it, but I've always liked it, and I like it more and more the more I every time I watch it again, or the more I think about it. I wish I could remember who to credit for this, but there's somebody that says that the best way to write a 6-parter is to do a 4-parter and then a completely separate 2-parter.
Bob Holmes, that was.
Thank you. I knew somebody would know that. Thank you. Awesome. So, Bob Holmes said that, and I think I disagree, because I feel like there's a lot of jarring, tonal dissonance if you have that in a situation like this, and I think the Chase suffers from that. It doesn't suffer half as badly as some other things. I'm looking at like Invasion of Time, which is 2 completely unrelated stories that are just cut and shut together like a really bad, 1990s car dealer. But the Chase, I think it combines itself together a bit more, but the pace is a bit all over. It takes a while to start. The last 2 episodes are great, but they don't feel as connected to the rest of the narrative. But yeah, more and more, I kind of love all the aspects that are the actual titular chase part. I love them going to the Empire State Building and forcing everybody to jump off the Marie Celeste, and then, as Will said during our review, body slamming, a Dalek with Frankenstein's monster or whatever. It's just like, you've just got to embrace the fun. And, the robotic Doctor Who, as they call it, the clearly Edmund Warwick playing the robotic Doctor in the episodes. And I have got that name right, haven't I?
Yes.
I feel daft if I haven't. So, and just, the really pathetic attempt at the fight between William Hartnell and Edmund Warwick, which is just basically 2 old geezers clashing walking sticks together. But it's got a charm like Doctor Who has. And like I said, I love the last 2. I love the mechanoids and everything. Love the Daleks throughout. I always love Daleks anyway, And as you say, I don't think it's going to be top tier, top 20 classic Who's or anything, but it's definitely a good one, and definitely I would say a hit. So yay, first time we've agreed today.
Yay.
The final thing isn't Dalek related, but it is another classic Who serial, one that was not available to watch for the longest time, but is now, and hopefully we all have. Well, 90% is now, and hopefully we all have. So hit or miss, The Web of Fear. And DK, I'll mix it up and come to you first on this one.
I love this one. It was one of the, I think it's one of the stories that originally got me into classic Who.
Even when it wasn't around, is that just like you were?
Yeah, back then when they had the reconstructions and the audio, okay. I remember buying the BBC audio version of this and sitting at work. Probably shouldn't confess that, really. Sitting at work at my desk and I'm listening to this and just being absolutely enraptured by it. To me, this is it's Troughton. It's your kind of first glimpse at Unit. It's the Yeti in the Underground. And when you mention Yeti in the Underground to Doctor Who fans, the hairs kind of prick up on the back of your neck. It's one of those standout kind of things from the series, and yeah, it didn't disappoint. Couldn't wait to see it once they released it on DVD. Yeah, I've been kind of a fan. In fact, going back to the Wilderness years, I remember one of the tracks on the second Cybertech album, Pharos, was based on the Web of Fear, and it's still incredibly atmospheric. It's very good. So yeah, I'm all over that stuff. It's a surefire hit for me, no doubt.
Awesome. Yeah, atmospheric is the word. We don't talk enough about classic Doctor Who sometimes. Meaning you and I, not just us generally. I mean, we talk about it a lot to other people.
Yeah. It's one of the only things we talk about. Let's be fair.
Well, So, Cliff, what are your thoughts on the Web of Fear?
Oh my God, I think I've heard other people say this as well. I think episode 4 is possibly the singly best directed and best looking and most exciting episode of Doctor Who, certainly in the 60s, possibly ever. I think that whole Yeti assault against, the unit versus Yeti in episode 4, Nicholas Courtney's performance, which is very, it's not the brig, but it's that sort of absolute loss of hope, and it's beautifully lit. It's probably the best looking black and white story, that and the War Games, I think. It's sort of, you wouldn't colorize the Web of Fear because you would lose so much. I mean, well, people probably would colorize the Web of Fear.
But it's strange to say that. That was going to literally be one of my points, was that I think if you get people that are like, oh, black and white is too distracting, why would you say it's a benefit? This is one of the examples I would fully show them now and say, like, I think if you colorize that, it loses the atmosphere completely. And as you said, the lighting and the direction of it as it is, it's made for black and white, and it works
coming
so
soon
much better.
To the BBC next Christmas.
Yeah, I think the performances are fantastic. I think the characters, like the journalists, the soldiers, they've not really dated. They feel fresh, they feel accessible. They don't. I think Anne Travers is fantastic.
Yes.
I wish she'd been a companion, and I kind of sort of theorized. I wonder if, I know there were rights things and Haseman and Lincoln and everything, but I wondered if she might have become a companion instead of Liz Shaw, or how much Liz Shaw was kind of, Anne Travers was a proto Liz Shaw, I think. In many ways, and yeah, I think it's brilliant. I saw episode 1 probably quite late in my fandom, and I think if it had been, I think they might have put it on the Troughton years tape, but then they decided to go for the earlier Yeti story and make sure there was a Cyberman one. The Cyberman tape. What was it?
Invasion.
I don't know. There was a reason why they didn't put it on the Troughton years, and then they were going to put it on the Ice Warriors video. And I think it was the discussion. Yeah, we're going to have the Web of Fear as the bonus episode on the Ice Warriors tape. And then someone else said, no, you should put Underwater Menace 3 on, because that's the earliest surviving Troughton. So right. It was really late, I think, before I got to see Web 1. And I think there was always a thing. It was like, I watched Web 1. I was like, this is fantastic, but I can't think about this too much. I can't watch the next 5 episodes, so I can't get too attached to it. Almost like, that's like, they'll never love me back, so I must keep my distance. And I did hear the audio. I had the CD when it came out, but I don't know, I went through a phase of sort of just not listening to them properly, and I think it works so much better visually. It's such a visual story, so even without episode 3, I'm so glad we've got what we've got.
Yeah, and I take it you both own the version with the animated one missing episode, yeah?
Yeah, I because it's in the middle. I mean, technically it's worse than Celestial Toymaker, which I really didn't like. But I think because it's in the middle and it's quite simple, I think it just tells the story. I'd love a better version of the animation, but I don't think it's like world-endingly terrible that the animation is not that great, because it's just in the middle. It's fine.
Yeah,
do.
I agree. I think as well, it's a weird thing to admit, but I think if you kind of present me with the 6 scripts and say one of these has to be missing, that probably would be the one I would pick, because it's mostly, as you said, like expositional, all in one room kind of. I can live without this and just having this animated. It's really just to get you between action moments from one to the next. And it feels like all the good stuff we kind of now have recovered, which is good, fantastic. It feels weird to think of the times when it was kind of like you said, it was you'd get videos and it would be like, and you can see one episode of this serial and one episode of the 2 surviving episodes of Dalek's Master Plan and the 1 episode of Underwater Menace and whatever else, and it was just like, but I like you, I just didn't used to bother with that because it always felt kind of silly. It's like, why would I watch 1 or 2 episodes when I can't watch the rest? So I hadn't even seen Web of Fear 1, even though I know it was around. But I had listened to the audio, and I think I was really nervous when it was discovered in some ways because I thought there's a chance that all the atmosphere that the audio has could be gone and it could look silly, especially with the kind of the Yeti being as they are, the kind of, they're almost like big teddy bear type things, but somehow it works really well. And they're terrifying.
That's a feeling I have with regards to Marco Polo. I kind of don't want them to ever animate that because it's going to sort of ruin the vibe I have from the audio and the reconstruction.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, but I was so relieved that when the Web of Fear came out, as you basically both already alluded, it was better than I could have hoped, and it was so much more atmospheric. And whoever the director is, I can't remember now, deserves every bit of credit.
It's Camfield, yeah.
Dougie Camfield, yeah. Yeah, and just probably his best work then in that case, because like I said, making these particular costumes that are a bit silly look truly scary. Like terrifyingly scary. Filming in London Underground. I'm assuming it was the actual Underground because you
no, it wasn't. No, this was the thing. It was all sets, and London Underground sent them a letter saying, "Why didn't you ask permission?" And there's because we built sets and we didn't use you. So London Underground genuinely thought that the sets were so good they had done guerrilla filming. But no, that studio it's on video because it would have been on film if. Of course. Yeah. And the other lovely thing, if I can just like throw something in, there's a really great guy who's an animator called Will Maddox on social media. You might see.
Oh, we know Will. I've been on quiz shows with Will and everything. We know Will quite well.
Hey, and he did because obviously the Brigadier and the Doctor don't actually meet in Web of Fear on screen, but there is a scene in the novelization by Terrence Dicks where he gives the Doctor and the Brig a little meeting in the tunnels, and so Will scripted and animated that, and Tony Filer did an absolutely superb impression of the Brigadier, and I did what I thought was good, but actually just is okay. But people have been nice about it. I played Troughton for that little scene that went online. And so it was a little video clip on YouTube. But then Will, bless him, burnt it to DVD, made an absolutely perfect DVD cover for it. And it's sitting on my shelf. And I'm so chuffed that I got to show it to my mum. It was awesome.
Awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, cool. And I want to say one more thing I want to say about this episode. And I hope I'm not completely misremembering this, but I think that it is Jack Watling's second appearance, correct?
That's right, yep.
After Abominable Snowmen, and yet the completely different, he seems older and completely different character to the Abominable Snowmen, which admittedly I haven't seen. I've only seen it animated, but I just remember thinking when I saw this, like, wow, it's the same actor playing the same character, and yet you do feel like decades have passed, you know what I mean? So I think credit where it's due for that one as well, because that's one heck of a performance, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, again, consensus, pretty much universal hit for the Web of Fear. So, with that out of the way, that'll conclude the hit or miss section for today, as I said, and we will move into the bulk of the episode, which is going to be our main review. As I said, our review this week is going to be the Day of the Daleks, I should say, the third Doctor story. And I don't really have any setup or anything for this, except to say that I've given a behind-the-scenes section to DK with some information for this. So without any further ado, I'm going to activate the time-space visualizer, speaking of the chase, and throw it over to you, DK, for the behind-the-scenes information on this.
That meant that you could just tune in and see any event in history.
Yes, that's exactly what this is.
No, Doctor, you're kidding.
Yeah, no worries. So we'll start off. The initial draft of the 4-part storyline was called The Ghost Hunters and didn't feature the Daleks at all. Driving the decision to have them return was a personal request from the BBC's managing director, as well as a constant stream of letters from viewers. One roadblock to this was that their creator, Terry Nation, had planned to launch them into their own US-funded adventure series. This, however, failed to materialise, and so it was thought he might be open to reviving the creatures in Doctor Who. Though Nation was too busy to write the story himself, he did grant permission for a Dalek serial to be written by someone else, on the proviso that he could approve it and also receive a credit and fee. Now, initially, this proposed Dalek story was planned to be a 6-parter that would conclude the 1972 season, written by Robert Sloman and with the working title The Daleks in London. However, it was felt that the series was lacking something special to kick off the season, such as the introduction of the Master 1 year earlier, or the Third Doctor himself the year before that. It was felt that incorporating the Daleks into the first story of Season 9 would be a publicity-friendly gimmick to launch the series. Terence Dix suggested that the Daleks could easily be incorporated into Louis Marks' script, and the writer was briefed to include them. Barry Letts later explained that he and Dix were intrigued by the notion of time paradoxes. Terence and I had endless discussions. What happens if you go back in time and shoot your grandfather before he's met your grandmother? Time travel is impossible, and so we had to think of reasons that would make it seem possible. In Day of the Daleks, the guerrillas were coming back from the future to the present day, while the Doctor had gone ahead into the future to try to sort things out there. And so you had action going on in 2 places at the same time. Why, we wondered, should these events be going on coincidentally? If you travel forwards in time for a day and then come back, why do you find that a day has elapsed in your time too? It isn't necessary at all. You could come back the day before if you wanted. In the end, this difficulty really got on top of us, so we had Joe say to the Doctor, why don't we just go back to the day before and get it right this time? To which there is no real answer. So what the Doctor says is, well, that's the Blinovitch limitation effect. And when Jo says that she doesn't understand, the door opens and in come the gorillas. So we never explained that, but it provided us with a way out of time paradoxes. Jon Pertwee later stated about this serial, it's well known now, but my pet hate is the Daleks. I couldn't bear the things and can't imagine how they could be so popular. They look so primitive to me, trundling round the studio, and it was a great fight for our directors to make them look anything more than a heap of old plywood on casters. It was just my luck that we did several Dalek stories, and I squirmed my way through each and every one of them, Day of the Daleks being the worst. The story was such a complete anticlimax, with about 3 Daleks supposedly making up an invasion force. I found that a great shame, as Paul Bernard, who was the director, was one of the best, and I think he nearly had a nervous breakdown trying to make it look good. Film editing is used to attempt the illusion of more than 3 Daleks. The final battle at Audley House was also disliked by viewers, as it was quite obvious that only 3 Daleks were attacking. On the 2011 DVD release and subsequent Blu-ray box set, CGI and newly shot footage was used to revamp the scene, making it appear that more Daleks were attacking the house. The scripts referred to the Dalek henchmen simply as monsters, and they were only christened Ogrons shortly before production began. John Levine found the Ogrons to be awesome Doctor Who monsters. They were half-masks with long hair and leather chests. They were really gutsy monsters. It's so much more menacing and believable to have a monster come up to the Doctor and knock him for 6 than to have something come up and threaten extermination. The men inside were taller than John, Katie Manning told Doctor Who magazine, and very menacing. They were always very charming to me, but some of them knew what the inside of a prison looked like. The Honda motorized tricycle that the Doctor and Jo used to attempt to escape from the Ogrons had been featured at the 1970 London Motor Show, where Jon Pertwee had taken a fancy to the vehicle, something that happened fairly often with Pertwee and vehicles, and he suggested to Letts it could be incorporated. And John Byrne has stated that he unconsciously lifted the basic plot of Days of Future Past from Day of the Daleks. So yes,
I love that fact. So the X-Men story is
and that's where I'm also going to bring up the fact that we were discussing the other day, and I said that James Cameron must have been high as a kite and had this on a loop when he was writing the script for Terminator.
There's so many things that since Day of the Daleks that have done the whole, traveling from the future to change the past, and could it potentially be a predestination paradox? And yet, I think Day of the Daleks doesn't get credit for being probably the first, if not one of the first, that actually, deployed that idea. And then, as you said, it's the Terminator, it's Days of Future Past, it's so many other things in pop culture since that we take it for granted now. But I mean, the impact in 1970 something of he didn't plant the bombs, you did it yourself, must have been like, what? So yeah. Anyway, moving on. I was going to ask if you had anything else to add to our behind the scenes, Cliff, because you did say you had maybe an Ogron fact or two to share with us.
Yes, so there isn't a black archive to do a little bit of research on this, but I am friends with the wonderful David Brunt, who does the absolutely fantastic production diaries, the Hartnell one. There was a big brick of a book that came out last year from Telos Publications. He's working on the Pertwee years at the moment, which will probably be 2 books, we think, late 26 or 27. And the Troughton book is out maybe January next year as well. So yes, I've got a couple of little facts here. I'll do a couple of little early ones about extras. So Pat Gorman is a guard at the work camp on film in episode 3, although he's barely recognizable. But he also plays a film cameraman in the Exodus from the house in episode 4. In the bike chase in episode 3, Terry Walsh doubled as the Doctor, as usual, and Joe was doubled by Sue Fairbrother. So presumably the denim mini dress was too short even for Stuart Fell. It's like
Coward.
Oh, yes. Oh, in the scene that was Joe looks terribly lovely climbing up that ladder. Oh, it's Stuart Fell. Okay, now that's confusing. And then
woke, got woke, it turned woke, man in a dress. Not having it.
Then Jean McFarlane was to reappear in episode 4 as Styles' secretary, but couldn't make the studio date. So her character is replaced by Desmond Verini as Styles' aide. Yet Jean suddenly reappears outside in the pre-filmed film Exodus, and Verini appears as a plainclothes PC. So there's a little bit of a continuity mess up there, because obviously that's supposed to happen within seconds on the screen. But my best fact, my best one that I've been given is that the Ogrons had different voices when they did the filming and the first 2 episodes in the studio. So this is the most exciting fact. The Ogrons weren't supposed to sound really thick and slow. So the reason why the Ogron says no complications, basically the Ogrons were always going to talk like that, just a kind of slightly normal voice. Possibly the notes say slightly camp at times. And then there was a big rethink between the first studio day and the second studio day. And so the Ogrons don't have, I don't know if they have any dialogue in, well, I don't think they have much dialogue, but basically they redubbed all the Ogrons from episode 3, in the episode 3 sessions from episodes 1 and 2, but they missed the no complications line. Maybe they were just going to cut that, or just try and cut it out when he says no and not have complications in, is my theory. This is where it gets into speculation for no complications. But yeah, basically, no complications was the original way that the Ogrons would have talked. They would have talked just like us. And then they suddenly decided to make them big, brutish, and thick.
Indeed. It's entirely possible, of course, and again, this is just my speculation, that some of these chaps that were familiar with the inside of a prison cell may have seen the direction play it a little bit camp and simply said, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. The other thing I wanted to mention and bring up is that this story famously has a special edition version, which is said to have repaired a lot of the issues with the original, and I have to say, in my opinion, very much does. And I was very excited because I informed DK about this, despite the fact that he'd owned the DVD for years and he had no idea that it existed, let alone that he owns it. So this was the first time that you'd seen the special edition since I actually pointed out that it was there, DK.
Yes. This happens more often than you'd think, listeners.
So I was really thrilled because I can now get your opinions as we go on about the special edition. And obviously, you've already said you think it's a vast improvement. I agree. I think it's worlds of difference better than the edition that we got. Some of the things are kind of, the usual things where it's like, I can get away with it. It's not strictly necessary, but yeah, you've improved bits and pieces here and there. But I did have a quick list of what's been changed for the special edition, if you guys wouldn't mind indulging me, because I kind of made notes as I went along. The main thing is obviously the last battle at the end, which I'll get to, because that was, I think, every fan hated the kind of, slow, lumbering Ogron with 3 Daleks trying to pretend that, they were taking out all the forces of UNIT, and it didn't look convincing. But anyway, starting from the beginning, there are new effects of the gorillas disappearing and appearing to the, the past time zone or whatever you want to call it, which now looks much more sparkly and shiny. There's new enhanced visions of the futuristic city, as a kind of, an indication of where we are when the scene changes to the future stuff. I don't think they're in the original version, but I don't remember seeing them. There are, of course, the other famous change, new improved Dalek voices. People hated the original Dalek voices. They were people who hadn't done them before, and they just didn't really work. So for the special edition, of course, Nicholas Briggs has come back and re-recorded all of the Dalek dialogue, and it's amazing the difference it makes. Honestly, it's incredible. Again, I don't know if this is part of the original episode, but I can't recall the idea that when the Ogrons and humans are being blasted by their Ogron weapons, they turn into what looks like confetti, just blasted into nothing. Yeah. At the end of episode 1 and in the cliffhanger reprise at the beginning of episode 2, the female technician noticeably stammers when she delivers the line "same frequency, same time zone," repeating the word "time" twice by mistake. That's in the original version, but this error is also corrected in the special edition. That edits the audio to remove the repeated word and cuts to a newly created shot of the technician's monitor to prevent the technician's movements from becoming desynchronized, which is wow, above and beyond. They've corrected some huge CSO errors in the sequences of the past 2 Doctors. Previously, the CSO was reflected in various parts of the set as well as just the screen. And the credit, starring Doctor Who, Jon Pertwee as Doctor Who, appeared on the screen that they were watching in the actual story when it clearly shouldn't have. Should have crossed to the actual credits by then. That's been corrected as well. And as I said, several new scenes were filmed, including the Ogrons arriving at Orderly House in episode 2. Some actors' line fluffs were removed from the story's soundtrack, and a scene in the original version where the Doctor backs away from an Ogron while he's holding a gun has been re-edited to make it look as if he shoots the Ogron while stepping backwards, which is the one thing I don't know if that's a bit, George Lucas Han Solo, but, whatever, we can live with it because, like I said, then by the last episode, we've actually got newly filmed Daleks and Ogrons mounting an attack that looks thoroughly a lot more convincing, and fair enough. So, with that in mind, then, I may as well. I was going to. I'll start with the way I always do, which is to say, what were your actual first experiences of this, which would have been the obviously broadcast version of the story, and what were can you remember when it was you first saw it and what you initially thought of it? And I'll come to you first, Cliff, if you don't mind, if you've got thoughts on that.
Okay, this was one of my very, very earliest Classic Who experiences. This was the little batch of VHSs that were available in B&G Video Rental Shop in the Isle of Man. Which,
wow.
It was another of those tapes. I think I probably talked about it last week, where they were like a little handful. There was Spearhead from Space, Day of the Daleks, Robots of Death, and possibly Seeds of Death. Or maybe that was the other one. So basically, there was one rental shop that had a very small batch. And then a couple of years later, another second rental shop opened that had some different ones. Basically, this would be about 1987, 1988. And I rented it. I think it was like 99p or £2 or something to have it for a few days. And there was a point where I asked for it several times, and then it's like, okay, he's getting it for Christmas because he might as well buy it rather than rent it. For it in the movie length format, in the original format. There were no cliffhangers on the version, and then I got the uncut version in 94 or 95. I absolutely adored the photo cover, even though I think the Daleks are reversed. I think the guns and the arms are the wrong way around. It's a mirror image or something.
There are some really hilarious things on some of those covers. I forget which story it is, but I think it might be one of the Pertwee Daleks ones where Unit inexplicably have a spaceship on the front cover of one of these books.
Oh, that's the American novelizations. Yeah.
I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. But it was it was quite striking in its own day. And it was certainly my first Katie Manning story that I ever saw. And sort of 6 or 7 years old. I had a crush, if there was any kind of if there was a decision moment where it's like, yes, Cliff is going to grow up and like girls, perhaps it was that. I don't know. I remember really, really enjoying it. Of course, I hadn't seen many Dalek stories, so I didn't think the voices were that bad. They're obviously different. They're obviously not as good. We found and destroyed it. I thought they were okay. I think the voices in Revelation of the Daleks, which are literally just Roy Skelton holding his nose with no filter, and everyone says, "Oh, that's because they're humanoid Daleks." It's like, no, they should still have filtering on. They sound rubbish.
I can't get away with Roy Skelton Daleks anyway because I'm a child of the 80s and I saw him first as Zippy. So anytime I hear Roy Skelton Daleks, it's just like they should be attacking a pink hippo somewhere.
Yeah, he gets zippier and zippier as it goes along. So the Black Dalek in Remembrance is very zippy.
Exterminate him, yeah.
Yes.
Oh no, Jeffrey, he's going to exterminate me.
But yeah, so I think compared to them, I think sometimes the Dalek voices in it are overhated. You know, it was a very early Dalek experience for me, so I didn't have the original voices ingrained in the same way. And I like how Unit was in it. I thought, you know, I kind of you sort of understand the Doctor and Unit's relationship without, you know, you don't necessarily have had to, maybe I'd seen Spearhead from Space by that point, but I think it was pretty clear what was going on.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, that was a sort of solid established setup, and it's nice that it's a bit Unit and a bit sci-fi. You know, we have a kind of half and half, which I've always really liked about it.
I did make a note of that this time, is that like this is really the perfect summation of if you didn't know the Unit relationship with the Doctor, because all the way through the first 3 parts I'm just constantly writing, geez, Doctor, get off the Brigadier's ass. Like, leave him alone, man. And then like I think it's in the final part or maybe the 3rd episode where the Doctor just steals the Brigadier's Jeep and he just gives it the most half-assed, come back here. Well, never mind. He's just given up and trying to control him at this point.
Yes.
But, yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was amusing.
No. So I mean that's pretty much my first impressions. I just really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's always been a solid thing. I think when the DVD came out, I was really slightly taken aback by how much the extras really push the this is not a very good story and this is not a very beloved story, and we've worked really hard to fix it and turn a really terrible story into something brilliant, because I do think the effects are great, the new effects. But I was like, people not like Day of the Daleks that much then? Is it seen as not a classic? Because I just sort of always thought it was a classic, even with the, it's only 3 Daleks. I know that bit, but so yeah, and I enjoyed the new effects. I think the one thing that stood out though very early on was I was always kind of confused as why outside the Doctor's laboratory for a while there was just a bright yellow wall which didn't really look like a wall, and I think very much later on I thought, that's a CSO background that they meant to CSO a brick wall into, I reckon. And they never got round to. And when I sat down and watched the new effects version on DVD for the first time, when we first get to like just before that scene, I was like, I bet they fixed that wall, I bet they put some bricks in or some concrete or something, and it's still that yellow CSO backdrop, and I was like, they missed a bit.
I can't say I noticed, but it's such a weird scene anyway with the kind of other Doctor and Joe appearing at that point. And yeah, I think I was just trying to get my head around that when I first saw it and never really looked at the background or anything. There are much worse CSO kind of errors, I think, in other episodes. I think specifically if Robot has some really horrendous ones.
Oh yes.
What were your initial thoughts of Day of the Daleks, and when did you first see it? Sorry.
I first saw it, I managed to get a cheap copy on VHS. I'd seen a few Pertwees until this point. I think the Peladon, the first Pertwee story, 3 Doctors, and Carnival of Monsters. And like Cliff, Kate Manning, big part of my childhood. So yeah, I was partway through collecting the VHSs and I got this. I found the story to be just as dull as the cover. I hated this the first time I watched it. It wasn't, I didn't find it bad as in, time lash bad. I just found it incredibly dull. And, the climax with 3 Daleks, there was just no payoff whatsoever. I hated it. I've watched it several times since then, on rewatches, chronological rewatches. This is, I believe, the first time I've actually watched it and thought, something? This isn't that bad. I actually quite enjoyed it this time. So, it was a tough sell for me, this one, until I saw the special edition. So, If nothing else, dude, I've got to thank you for that.
Yeah, that you always owned and didn't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I can't believe that. I was like, oh, I've watched special edition. You're like, oh, I can't watch the special edition. I've only got the DVD. I was like, yeah, it was made for the DVD, dumbass. If you check, you will have it. But anyway.
Yeah, but in fairness, I didn't like the story and I was just buying it for completionism. So I just, I would go out, buy it, stick it on the shelf, and that's it. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Fair enough. Well, that was what I was going to be my point, actually, to kind of what Cliff was saying. I can't say for sure because I'm never really in line with general consensus when it comes to the Who fandom, as my love of the Jodie Whittaker era will attest. But I do think this is kind of one of the stories that's been through a reappraisal over the years, that maybe started out not being well regarded, but now it's a surprise how many people I asked about it that were like, it's actually really, really good. Like you, DK, and it wasn't just the special edition version, I presume. I think some people have just, and I'll mention it when I come to the audience response, some people have really just, looked at it with fresh eyes and thought, it's a sleeper hit, really. I don't understand where the idea that it's a bad episode comes from, apart from, like you said, some of the flaws are obvious when it comes to the actual execution, but I don't think that takes away from how good the story is or the things that actually work even in the broadcast version, like, the acting and the ideas.
I think also, like most things, it depends on your mood when you first watch it. And if you're not in the best of moods when you first watch it, that kind of carries over to every, subsequent watch.
You just enjoyed it this time because you were sitting having a pizza on your own, didn't you?
that I have to say, that is going to be a tradition now.
And my first experience, I've only really seen the broadcast version of this once, and it was years and ages ago when I got the DVD and watched it because I didn't want to start with, the special edition. And yeah, I didn't hate it. But like I said, I fully acknowledge as soon as I put the special edition on, it was obvious that the changes had vastly improved things, but I still didn't think it was a bad story. And every time I've watched it since, it's been the special edition version. That's now the default for me now. So I've seen it 4 or 5 times and only seen the original version once because I think, the improvements they do make a world of difference. So and it's interesting to see that you think the same, obviously, DK. So yeah, cool.
I have to say, I do love those new gun effects.
It was, it's a little bit funky for me when people are bursting into confetti bloodlessly because it's it's Doctor Who, so you can't really do much else. But I was like, all right, it's fun, I guess. I'll just go with it. That's one of the things I was like, I get why you've done it, but I can live without it. I love the idea that instead of them just fading away CSO style, that when they go to the past, there's actually swirling red effects and stuff that make it look like something's actually happening. Like that's an improvement I can live with.
Yeah,
but,
and I do like the new intros to the future that
yes,
make it look like Croydon on a Saturday morning.
Any of our listeners from Croydon, DK's views do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast or myself.
I lived in Hayes near Bromley for a little while, so I used to go into Croydon quite a lot, and fair.
Fair enough. Oh well, we've kind of touched on almost everything before the actual main sections, which are going to be things like writing, plot, direction, acting. Not that there's a whole lot to say. We've touched on a few of those things already, but we may as well get into it. So without any further ado, we'll chuck on the TARDIS scanner and begin our analysis.
Scanning. Press send.
And I do have bits and pieces to kind of sort of read out from this, starting with the writing, because that's the first thing on my list, so why not? So I'll start by saying that the writer of this, as we mentioned, is Louis Marks. He had contributed the story Planet of Giants to the show's second season over a decade before he was approached by the current production team of script editor Terrence Dix and producer Barry Letts. His pitch involved time travel paradoxes and how history might be changed. Marks later stated, the concept captured the imagination because Israel was a little nation about to be extinguished. My little concession to that were the names of the heroes. They were all Israeli, Boaz, Anat, Moniah. There was a feeling that we were heading towards a world war because the Russians looked as if they were going to take sides. Then the Americans, and things might have escalated. It was very much in the ether at the time, so that was my starting point. Oh my God, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That was my editorializing there, but yeah, it's a bit freakish to look on this now. He also said, if there was a war, could you go back to the point where things went wrong and change history? Probably not, looking at the way things are going at the moment.
We have an option right now, people. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of my quick notes on this is the first season premiere without a personnel change in the Pertwee era, and for a while, actually. And yeah, it's noticeable that it's one of the stories that makes the most use of time travel without actually featuring a single TARDIS traveling anywhere in time and space. So yeah, cool. So I'll throw it open then to you guys, and well, I'll start with you, Cliff, because I'm sure you probably have some notes on the writing. What did you think worked? What didn't work? And what stood out from Day of the Daleks?
I think it's really interesting because Louis Marks has, he did a Hartnell, he's done a Pertwee, a Tom. I think they're all very different stories that he does. They're not necessarily, you wouldn't say you would know what a Louis Marks style story is. I don't think he uses as much humor as some writers. So, there's maybe a lower level. Possibly.
You say that, but I did make a note that I absolutely love the rank has its privileges joke.
Oh, yes.
When Yates just comes in and steals Benton's food.
Yeah, I love that bit. I'm not sure if that was a Terrence bit or not. I don't know.
Okay.
Or something that was worked out. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that is a lovely moment. I think he sort of drives it quite well. I think the issues with the ending and the assault on the house are, possibly directorial issues or time issues, or there's certain things there that are not necessarily his fault. It does end quite abruptly.
I have a reason for that that explains it. I'm sure I may as well mention it now because I've got it in one of the things, but it might be under production. There was supposed to be a scene filmed that would have called back to the second Doctor and Joe scene in episode 1, where the Doctor and Joe became that version that was then traveling back. But the director of the serial said he refused to film it and said that once the story's over, it's over and we're out. So it was never filmed. So we never revisit that moment.
Fair enough. I think the characters are drawn very well. I think the controller is drawn especially well in the script. He's played very well later on. We'll sort of come to acting, obviously. Yes. But I think there's some very nice stuff in the script for him to do, and the sort of the creeping subordinate that ends up going after him.
I hate that. I mean, this is an acting note, but I'll start out early and say I hate that guy. That dude, yes. He thinks he's straight from the set of Rent-A-Ghost or something. The most comedy camp character you've ever seen. Like, speaking of roles that Kenny Everett should have played.
It's the beard, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the acting. It's the fact that there's no subtlety whatsoever. It really does feel like a comedy performance. Like he's listening in, and it's just geez, man, is there a pantomime rehearsal down the road or something you came from? What the heck?
Yeah, but script wise, I think it's all right.
Sorry. Apologies to that actor, but my word, you were terrible. If you are indeed still alive and care what my thoughts are.
Probably not. I'd look him up, but yeah.
At the end of the day, he was in Doctor Who, and I never have been. So who's really winning it?
Yeah. And the character, what's his name? Who sort of he ends up sort of getting rid of him. The nice character, who's the factory worker, who's
I think he's just described in the credits as the manager.
The manager, yeah. I liked him. Again, I thought there was some nice, distinct stuff for him. The sort of freedom fighters, stroke terrorists. The titles keep changing every few years. I think they're well drawn. I think it's nice that they're clearly doing their best at a bit ragtag, and they don't always agree. And they're nicely drawn from different backgrounds. I think the casting works quite well for that. But it's in the script. There's some class dynamics going on, I think, in there as well. It's people, all slightly different, but being forced to work together. There's a sort of nice balance of brutality and humility and humaneness to them. I think he captures that quite well. That comes out in the direction and the performances, but I think it is there in the script to begin with. And I think the Daleks come across well. Is the fact that it's the first Dalek story that's not written by either Terry Nation or David Whittaker. And again, I'll sort of go back to the point that obviously Whittaker was around so much for the creation of the Daleks and was story editor and probably did a lot of rewrites on Terry Nation. This is the first time the Daleks are in completely different hands to their origins. And I think they still work well. They may not necessarily be as complex as they might appear in Evil or in Power. But they are Daleks doing Dalek-y things. I think that's rather good.
I did have a question about that because I'm kind of wondering if it's a little bit of my bias that knowing the kind of behind the scenes stuff. Like, to me, the Daleks, they feel like they've done a good enough job incorporating them, but I can see that they do feel perfunctory, like it's a story that doesn't need them. It could have, it could have been anybody it could have been humans that have taken over, in the future, a particular fascist regime or something. But is that just me being unfair, or can you see that the Daleks weren't strictly part of the story?
I think it. I mean, I don't think it's an unfair sort of statement, but I think what's quite nice is that it's. We were talking about it in Dalek Invasion of Earth. We have invaded the Earth again. I think it's kind of nice that they are the ones that are going back and having another go, just as the freedom fighters are going back and having another go. So there's the parallels there. Yeah. The day of the Daleks implies that there's plenty of times where they haven't had a day. And now it is their day. And they're sort of established. It's kind of nice that they, again, they are there and they've sort of done it. I think it's, you've got the controller as a sort of human face, working with him. We talked a bit about Mavit Chen and, other human characters in Dalek Invasion of Earth, doing a little bit of that. So I think you've got some nice dynamics that make it a little bit interesting and a little bit different. It's not a full-on Dalek story in the way that Planet of the Daleks is, in the sort of traditional, lots and lots of Daleks on their own. Yeah, I think there is a good case for it being a slightly different take on a Dalek story. I would argue that it is better for having Daleks in, because Daleks are cool.
Definitely.
We'd not seen them for a long time. It's almost like a trailer for more Dalek-y stories to come as well. It's like, obviously Daleks are off the table because Terry Nation wanted to do his American series for a very long time. And the final end on Skaro was very much kind of, we're paying Nation to use these things. We've got the Cybermen, which we kind of own, so we can do more with the Cybermen. I think the rights situation with the Cybermen was slightly more BBC favorable. If I recall, they didn't really do a lot
with them either, though. Into this era, I think they were kind of the Third Doctor's era for the start of it. At least it seems to be all about inventing its new things that would become iconic, like the Autons and the Master and Silurians. I have a couple of thoughts, but I think I don't want to talk over you all the whole time, DK. So I'm going to come to you and think and ask, what you thought about the usage of the Daleks and anything else that stands out in the writing of the story.
I do agree with you in that they feel perfunctory. It could have been anyone as the big bad. But if they have a chance to use them, they're going to use them. It helps with the publicity. They were still big. It doesn't entirely work for me with regards to that. They do, while I'm watching it even now, feel a little like an afterthought. I think the time travel aspects, they're much more interesting to me. Again, you could have used anyone with regards to that. It is nice to see them. It is nice to see them on a special edition when it works. I think the problem that I have had with this one for such a long time is it's a decent script in search of decent execution, and I don't think that's what was happening up until at least that special edition. It just feels very like a missed opportunity almost. It's I mean, I didn't appreciate the story when I was younger simply because of the fact that it was basically time paradoxes and consequences. So it didn't kind of float my boat until later on. But as I said, by the time it got until later on, I was so put off by my first couple of times watching it that it still didn't resonate. That's changed now. I'm not going to say in any way I think this is a perfect Doctor Who story, because to me it's far from it. But it does have some glimpses of really good scripting, and it does. You mentioned it. I'm not sure if it was you or if it was Cliff with the rank has its privileges kind of thing. I just love the offhand nature of sitting down, having something to eat with your enemy. It feels almost Ian Fleming Bond type thing.
I mean, the Third Doctor is a very
oh god,
James Bond, Jason King type character anyway, though, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I love
the fact that he karate chops one of the gorillas while still not spilling a drop of his wine.
I love that. I love that, and I love that he just stops every action sequence in this. He stops to make sure he gets his cloak.
Hi.
That's I love that. Yeah, it's done really, but I love it. Where he says you're a Quisling, and then he says, "Oh no, I come from 3 generations of controllers." He's a family of Quislings. Then he doesn't bat an eye. He can be quite, especially in that special edition with the gun. He can be quite brutal, and I like that.
Well, I mean, he kills 2 Ogrons in the special edition, but he kills 1 even in the original broadcast version, which shocked me, and I was kind of like, oof, I don't know about this, but
exactly.
I suppose it's self-defense, isn't it? Really.
Well, yeah, and there's a whole sentience thing, but I don't know. I'm not getting into that. But there's some really good lines as well. I know you're a politician, but use your brains, man. It's I do like it. It's grown on me, and I do think it's written well. I just think that it maybe have been a little too ambitious for a BBC production, and the whole thing about I'm not refusing to do that because once the story's done, it's done. That just frustrates me. I wanted to see that pay off.
And like Cliff, it ends way too abruptly without it. I think. I mean, I get why you would end there for impact's sake, but I think it needs that little coda just to finish things off.
Yeah, I do like it became very typical in Doctor Who, is Blinovitch limitation effect. I'll tell you later, kind of thing. But it was a good way of kind of brushing under the carpet without spending the next 5 minutes trying to explain to Joe Grant these things.
I just immediately flashed a curse of fatal death there.
Yeah, every single time that happens. Yeah, every single. But yeah, I do know they really did in the Wilderness years jump on that Blinovitch bandwagon. And there's a part in I think it was the very first New Adventures novel I got, Head Games by Steve Lyons. Ace ends up in a fight with a couple of henchmen in a cafe, and they're kind of like popping in and out of time. And once it's finished, the cafe is completely destroyed, and she's looking at the wreckage, and she says, "Oh my God, Blinovitch would have had a fit." And it just every time they mention it now, it just reminds me of that section. But it is a handy way of, kind of brushing it under without a child, thinking it's crazy. It's well written. I just think that once you get past the writing stage, that's where things start to get a little bit iffy.
I think, like I said, I've got a few things I wanted to say. One kind of jokey and one serious to start with. First of all, the idea that the Daleks in the future say to the controller that he has to increase productivity. And when the controller says that some people will die, the Daleks' response is that only the weak will die and that will increase their effectiveness. I was like, geez, the Daleks here are Jeff Bezos. But on a more serious note, I do think credit where it's due that when it comes to the characterization of the guerrilla soldiers, whatever you want to call them, they're all well drawn, but particularly I was pleasantly surprised at how well Anat is drawn, because it's for a female character in early 1970s to be, ostensibly the leader of this group, have her own agency, and just be written well and not like, make us a cup of tea, love, or whatever kind of thing. I was like, I know we were starting to get that more and more in these eras anyway. And we'd kind of come off the back of having like Lee Shaw and even, to an extent like Zoe and Victoria, but it's nice to see them kind of do that. I kind of wish that she didn't have to be the maternal figure and the only one that was like, no, let's listen, let's hear people out and whatever, because it kind of plays into those stereotypes. But at the same time, I think the writing and acting kind of gets away with that for me anyway. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And I think that, again, that performance is just brilliant. That actress is really good in this role, in what could have been, it could have been a terrible fit, a square peg round hole situation, but she does a really good job. So yeah. I have a couple of other little things. First of all, I really want either a heavy metal band or just a T-shirt slogan that says "Activate the Magnetron" in big capital letters.
Oh yes. Oh, did you know in Dutch a microwave is actually called a magnetron? So
I did not.
every time I put one of the very kindly provided ready meals in from work in my break,
Oh, you have to do it.
I find
You have to
myself
say,
saying,
activate the magnetron.
Activate the magnetron in my head. Everyone around me is both
Oh.
Dutch and in their 20s, so no one would get it. But yeah, in my head,
but that's
I do
amazing.
It.
I would do exactly the same thing. Now I do know that microwave in Welsh is popty ping, which is one of my favorite facts of life.
Oh,
ever.
yes.
Popty ping.
Popty ping. I mean, they wouldn't have a word for a fancy modern technique, so yeah, it's called a poppity ping. It's true. You can look it up. I promise. Yeah. I'm not just saying that.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing I was going to say, this is my particular soapbox, but it's I heard an awful lot of complaints about Chris Chibnall and the Whittaker era about how the Doctor would never possibly just leave somebody to sacrifice themselves and walk away. He does exactly that in this story. I'm just saying, Shura decides that he's going to blow himself up to save everyone, and the Doctor pretty much just turns on and walks away. So, shut up, critics. Yeah. I think I've written "suck it, Geordie haters," particularly on my notes. But anyway, that's my particular soapbox. But I'll always stand on it because I just can't stand unfair or disingenuous criticism. But as we were talking about the acting, we'll move on to it because I don't have much to say about that, and we've touched on little bits. Cliff, did you have anything you wanted to add about the acting?
Yeah, one of the things, again, with the sort of the DVD, I mean, the Blu-ray is better. Obviously, it balances a bit more. But yeah, the DVD's general vibes are, this is a bit of a terrible story. And Barry Letts' commentary, he kind of articulates how disappointed he is with Aubrey Woods' performance as the controller. And I was like,
oh, that's a shock.
What the hell are you talking about? Because, I mean, I generally think Barry Letts was mostly on the money. I really respect his opinion and his decisions for a lot of the time. And I always thought that was very, very odd because I think his performance is fantastic.
I think it's good too. I disagree with Barry Letts completely on that one.
Yeah, I think Woods does the sort of the calm, collected politician, but you see the fear in his eyes and you see the uncertainty when he's doing his politician's answer, when he's doing that lovely kind of sitting on the floor, breaking bread with the Doctor, you see the self-justification. And also he's another actor that kind of, not to take it away from him, he does have sort of David Cameron vibes. in that sort of politician kind of way, that kind of smooth, posh delivery of the voice and the face. There's just something about him. That's
the thing, isn't it? Yeah, he's believably a guy who's kind of sold out because he gets the comforts that nobody else gets. And I see what you're saying, but I do love the way that. I mean, it really impacted me at the end when he's like, "Who knows? Maybe I've helped exterminate you," as he knows he's about to die.
His death is
impressive.
Wonderful. So I loved him. I think you were a little harsh on his lackey subordinate. I do see where you're coming from. I never quite, because I could be quite critical of some performances. But I mean, I'm a professional actor, so of course I think everyone's lovely, darling. You're all wonderful. Never criticize someone in case no.
I mean, to be fair, it may have been the direction, or it might just be a simple matter of. Doctor Who wasn't a particularly well-regarded show, and he simply thought, I'll pitch it that way. I don't want to be too serious in what is, a cheesy kid show to some people, so who knows?
Yes, sometimes people are go big or go home, and I kind of, I understand your point. When you were saying that, I was like, but and you've got the unit regulars who are great. There's something very, I don't know whether the silver makeup ladies, there's the lady who fluffs their line, and there's a few others, whether they're meant to be like mind wiped or are they meant to be robo men without the headsets, or there's something going on there. Are they androids? I don't know whether it was one of those things like we don't really know, we'll just go for it.
I just assumed they were like government lackeys, and like I said, like the controller were just kind of like, well, we're all right, Jack, so we'll just get on with it, and lest the Daleks turn on us, kind of thing. Anyway, could be me, but any other thoughts on it, or shall I switch to DK now?
on performances?
Just the acting generally.
I like Styles. I think he's a very typical politician. You know, he's probably a Tory, isn't he? I don't think he's.
I forget what the exact wording is, but I do love when the Doctor's like, when he's basically a good man, but he's like obtuse to the point of obstinance. You know, it's like, yep, that's politicians, really.
Yeah, yeah. I think he captures that very well. I think it's very solid. I think the guys who play the gorillas are all fantastic. And you've got the what's the actor called who comes back in? Is it Scott Fredericks who comes back in Image of the Fendal as well?
You've lost me there. That's the extent of my knowledge. I think I've wasted there.
Yeah, he comes back in Image of the Fendal, and he's pretty different. He's really good. He's solid. He's great.
Cool. Awesome. So what about you, Dickie? Any thoughts on the acting that we might not have covered? Or
not really. Pertwee, perfect as always. It reminds me. I think it shocks me actually every time I watch a Pertwee just how much I love his portrayal. Joe Grant, just fantastic. The Brig unit regulars, great. It's nice to see them again. But yeah, I disagree with Letts. I think Aubrey Wood's really good in this, even though it took me like an episode and a half to figure out where I'd seen him before.
The controller can, because he mixes it with Daleks.
So yeah, I think if again, it's, I don't know. I again, like the script, I think there's some good effort being put in here. It just never quite comes together for me. And as I say, I think it's down to ambition. You can't say there's a really a bad performance that let it down. It's not like someone's screaming, not the mind probe, but yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I just want to echo everything I've already said. I think Pertwee is fantastic. I love the Third Doctor anyway, but I just love the kind of debonair, secret agent-y, not spilling his wine stuff of the Third Doctor. I think Jo is always reliable. She gets to be tough, but a little bit too stupid at times, where you just feel like, I miss Liz Shaw at times. Although I adore Katie Manning, it's not her fault at all. I just think, they wanted to write quite often, oh no, save me, Doctor, and it gets tiresome after a while. Everyone else, I think the gorillas were fantastic. I loved the controller. I thought that was a great performance, just subtle enough. I've criticised the one guy already enough, so I won't attack him. And I think, Nick Courtney is underrated as the Brigadier, because it's a thankless task to just be the guy who's constantly the straight man to Pertwee, like I said, just digging at you for 4 episodes. But he pulls it off admirably, with stiff upper lip and all that. And I already mentioned the unit guys, the way they kind of have that army camaraderie, rank has its privileges joke and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, cool. I'm very aware that, once again, we're running against the clock here, so I don't want to say much about much else. No, what did you have to say? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, that was my fault for being late. But also, I wanted to throw in just a tiny bit about Pertwee. It's like the relationship between Pertwee and Manning is much, much warmer, because he's quite horrible to Jo in a lot of season 8. He's very harsh and prickly. And there's just like, there's still a little bit of a tease going on, but it's just much more warmer natured, I think, once we get into season 9. And I think that's nice. I think there's moments of charm Pertwee wanted, and I think he gets them now.
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree with you more, actually. And I think it is working towards the believability of the Green Death, where it is, it's an unspoken love, basically, which I think if you'd only had season 8, you'd kind of walk away from that episode thinking, what? But it does develop a lot as you go in these seasons. Cool. So I don't have much to add on the direction, except to say I love the dynamic transitions. Like with a lot of classic Who, I noticed the difference between like videotape to studio, but you can't really avoid that. I appreciate, this is a cheeky little note, but I appreciated that instead of showing you the kind of situation politically, it just uses a radio report to do that, because that's not me criticizing, that's saying genius. It's a shortcut way of doing it. And I do think even in the broadcast version, the action scene where in the future the gorillas kind of attack the complex and take down the Ogrons and stuff, I think that's a really good action battle scene anyway. And that's really all I have on the direction. Did you guys have anything quickly to add about that?
Yeah, I think Paul Bernard's quite good for a lot of it, but there's some rough bits, which the special edition fixes. There's some technical things. Paul Bernard's work is a lot better in Day of the Daleks than it is because he did the Time Monster as well, didn't he?
Oh, that's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I enjoy a lot of the Time Monster, but I think Day of the Daleks is technically better.
Yeah, it's certainly more ambitious, but I think that's kind of where it falls apart in places.
Yeah, and when you mentioned on the film sequences, I think the film sequences are quite poor quality. I think they're very soft.
Yeah.
And it would be lovely if the 16mm versions turned up again, because I think you'd see a massive difference. Because they always looked really terrible on VHS, and there's only so much they can do on DVD and Blu-ray for them, I think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the Blu-ray is an improvement, quite a lot over what we've had, but it's not the same as finding, like you said, that 16mm. Not they haven't, probably will, but I can live with it. I mean, it's something when it comes to older TV, I just accept. It's going to be obvious when they've suddenly switched to shooting inside of a studio and it looks incredible. Then you cut to an outside filming and it looks like somebody smeared a potato down the lens.
Yeah,
what can you do? So cool. DK, any thoughts on direction, special effects, music, or sound that you wanted to chuck in before we move on?
No, it's pretty standard for the era. The only thing that I can say is that thank goodness for the special edition on this one, as regards to the FX. And I did watch the making of the special edition after the episode itself, and I was quite shocked to see how much physical filming went into the read and shots rather than CG. So that was down to the point where they were trying to get the grading spot on so it would match as much as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, they basically remounted the kind of Ogrons and Daleks attacking the house completely, because why would you want that to look CGI and shoddy? So yeah, they were there. They actually filmed it.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the amount of work that they put into that, and I think it shows. It's one of the few now that I've seen special edition wise where I will accept that rather than watch the original. Most of the time, it's a novelty, new effects and things like that. But I think next time I watch this, it'll definitely be the special edition again.
As I said, it's been the one I switch to every time, except for that very first watch, because I just think it's better. But anyway, so I'll move us along, like I said, because time is once again catching up with us. So I will open the Subwave network and switch to our audience response.
I'm transferring the Subwave network.
Once again, I put out a prompt on social media asking what people thought about Day of the Daleks. And again, I think you might be pleasantly surprised, Cliff. I didn't hear a lot of negativity. We'll see how I go. I know I might be misremembering. So first of all, from our Discord, Jeremy, our friend and fellow Whovian, says, Day of the Daleks is a Moffat episode before Moffat was writing. The Daleks are effective as their presence was justified due to the story acing the characterization. Okay. The Daleks took advantage of a weakened world, as they always do. Also, the Doctor's attitude towards the controller and those who sympathize with fascists is a timeless message. Oh boy. And shows that those in the influence of evil can always change if they truly commit to repentance and standing up for what's right. The special edition is the superior version, as Nick Briggs provides the perfect voices. It's one of the only 15 stories in the show's history that I will rate a flawless 5 out of 5. Wow, high praise. So, over on Facebook, on Dalek Earth Force group, Morgan Firebiro Dean says, I love this story so much. One of the first Doctor Who VHS tapes I owned, and I wore it out. 5 stars. Edit. Plus, it's basically the storyline of Terminator 10 years before the fact. DK.
Yeah.
From the classic Whovian, Keith Say says 3 stars. The book is so good, the TV show was a bit of an anticlimax. I was wondering about that, because presumably you haven't got the limitations if you first experienced this as a Target novelization or whatever, but yeah, interesting. Dalek Earth Force again, David McClements says, I love Day of the Daleks. The special edition is good, but I prefer the original. There's just too much tinkering with the special edition. 5 stars. Hot take, I think. Ian Sack, when the same group here, says, good story, let down a little bit by some of the action and Dalek voices, but otherwise well done. Christopher Daniels says it's a definite 5. First story since the episode 1 of the Space Museum to explore time travel and its consequences. I still think the Ogrons are superb monsters as well. Matt Partridge says 5 stars, the best Dalek story. So good, I'm now going to watch it. Thanks for choosing my next Doctor Who story. You're very welcome, Matt. Thank you. From Doctor Who 1963 to 2025, Nick Mays says 3.5 as originally broadcast, 4.5 with the updates. Yeah. Stephen Hills simply says 4 out of 5. Russell Southern says, I loved it at the time. Yes, it needed a few more Daleks, but as Chris Eccleston rightly pointed out, you only need 1. I love seeing Jon tucking into the cheese and wine. A proper grown-up Doctor you could really look up to. I love the book, got the VHS, watch it on DVD regularly. I'd give it a solid 4 out of 5. Not a fan of the added effects, just like Star Wars. The reboots just screw with my brain, although I do think the reshooting of the final battle with the extra Daleks was brilliant. I love the Ogrons too. Why didn't they use them in the new series? Missed opportunity for sure. Paul Nielsen says, absolutely golden childhood memories here from seeing the repeats on ABC in the 70s and 80s. So I love the story for sentimental reasons. And that's it. That's all we have for the audience's thoughts on this. So just remains for us to give our final thoughts, starting, of course, as always, with our favourite character, moment, and line. And again, I'll be generous and go to our guest first, quite graciously. So, Cliff, do you have a favourite character in this, moment, and line? Over to you.
I mean, it could be possibly the controller, not because I agree with him politically at all, but I think he's very well played, and I think he's interesting. I think Quisling is one of the words that I learned through Doctor Who, and it's been incredibly appropriate in the last few years of political machinations, yeah, I think he's very well played. I think he's very interesting. But I love the Doctor and Joe in this. I think it's one of their best stories as a team, even though they're split up for a lot of it. I think there's just bags and bags of charm. The rank has its privileges scene is lovely, and the Doctor having the cheese. And yeah, just the sort of the casual way the Doctor does the karate chop when the gorilla comes through the window. It's almost like, have a little sip of tea or as a nibble of cheese or sip of the wine again. Yeah, he goes for his wine glass again, doesn't he? I think at one point.
He doesn't spill a drop of that wine.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So that's lovely. Yeah.
Cool. And do you have a line that stands out? Or I know some people just don't really register the dialogue as such.
Activate the magnetron whenever I cook something in a microwave.
That's perfect. I can't top that. DK, then, favorite character, moment, and line for you?
It's going to be the Doctor. Every time, as I said earlier, every time I watch a Pertwee, it reminds me just how much I love this iteration. So, yeah,
you and me both.
Yeah. As for lines, I think I'm going to go with the. I know you're a politician, but come on, brains, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Go for it.
I'd say favourite scene. This would have been a hard one before, but I'm actually going to go with the final battle in the special edition.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'll say that my favourite character is also the Doctor. Pertwee just has that X factor for me. He's moral, ethical, heroic, but he's also not afraid to get his hands dirty. Unashamedly flamboyant, effortlessly charming, and totally magnetic. I think, just great. My favourite moment is the gut punch twist that brings everything into focus. Styles didn't cause that explosion and start the wars. You did it yourselves. I think it's a brilliant, chilling reveal that still hits hard. Doesn't get enough credit either. And my favourite line, just because I'm sometimes, a sucker for a good joke, pity it was rather a good vintage, while Joe clocks an Ogron with a wine bottle. peak Doctor and Joe Grant and absolute gold. So then all we need to do now is give our conclusion and score out of 5 stars, as we always do. So, Cliff, do you want to go first, or would you rather us go while you gather your thoughts?
You guys go first.
Okay, TK, do you want to go before me, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Again, it's a short one. Yeah, absolutely hated this one when I first watched it, but it's grown on me over the years, especially now with the special edition. As I mentioned earlier, the script and the performances, they kind of a bit more than the production could handle. I think it bites off more than it can chew, and as a result, it doesn't quite come together, even with the special edition. But it's an admirable attempt. I can see why it's hailed as such a classic by other Who fans, but it just kind of misses the mark for me. So I'm going to give it 3.5. I think if it would have been the non-special edition, I'm sorry, but that would have been 2.5, 3. So, but yeah, 3.5 for me for this one. I like it much more than I did, but
Fair enough. Cool. I'll go. Mine's not as long as it often sometimes is, but it's still quite long. I said, I've got a real soft spot for the Third Doctor and this whole era. Call it the Unit era, the Let's Dick's years, or just Pertwee's run. I love the Earthbound present-day-ish stories. They hit harder because of their real-world relevance. The writing wasn't afraid to tackle politics, the state of the world, or humanity's darker nature. When did Doctor Who get woke? Try 23rd of November, 1963. This story has all of that, plus a clever use of time travel, something underused in early Doctor Who. The predestination paradox reveal still packs a punch, even if the trope's been done to death since. Is it the best Pertwee story? Maybe not. There are some clunky bits, tonal shifts, and at least one actor who thinks he's in Rent-A-Ghost. But it is the best of his Dalek stories, especially in the special edition. I'd also say yes, knock a star off my score for the original version. The fixes made here really do matter. Pertwee's on fire form, Joe is as solid as ever, and Unit feels like home. The Daleks are slightly bolted on, but still used smartly. The gorillas and the controller are well written and well played. The Ogrons work, and the story moves at a good clip. No TARDIS in sight, but still a perfect example of what the show can do with its time travel premise. I'd have liked to follow up to that future Doctor and Joe tease in part 1, but that's a small gripe. Not perfect, but very close. It's a dark horse of a story that deserves more love. When it's over, but let's not forget how good it was. And I gave it 4.5 out of 5. Actually, which, as I said, would have been 3.5 if it was the original version, but there we go. So, Cliff, over to you.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those thoughts. I mean, I've loved it since I was a child. I was won over by it as a child, and so sometimes when I hear criticisms, I wonder, is my nostalgia making me very defensive of it? But I think there's some fair points well made. But I think it's an interestingly slightly different use of the Daleks. So I do think they justify their presence there. I think the gorillas are well drawn. I think the controller's incredibly well drawn, and I love Pertwee and Manning's relationship in there. I think they're both just really, really likable, particularly in certain ways where Pertwee was too cold and rude in season 8. I think it stood the test of time. Is the Terminator is there. There's the Harlan Ellison story, Soldier from Tomorrow, renamed Soldier, which was a book in 1957. Then it was an episode of The Outer Limits, I think, which I don't know whether
Demon with the Glass Hand.
I think so.
No, there's two different ones. There's Soldier and Demon with a Glass Hand, but both of them claim to have been ripped off by Cameron for the Terminator. So both kind of sued him basically for stealing the idea.
And well done to Day of the Daleks for avoiding legal action, because they came well before and seems to have been safe. I think it's complex. I think it's interesting. I think there's characters with shades of grey. The special edition battle is much better than what was on film. That doesn't quite work directorially, but I'm fond of it. I'm even fond of the original Dalek voices. I don't think they're that bad. So it's could it be a 5 out of 5? I think it's a 4.5 out of 5. I think there are better stories, but I think it's very, very, very good, even in the original version.
Yay, I feel vindicated now because you give it the same score as me.
Yay.
So there we go. So putting those together then and sharing by the three of us here gives a final score for Day of the Daleks of 4.16 out of 5, which is really impressive for a story that, like you said, doesn't necessarily have the best reputation. That's going to be one of our higher scores, I think. So can't be too bad. Awesome. And that is a wrap on today's Dalek-filled adventures. A huge thank you to Cliff for joining us today. Cliff, do you have any plugs, projects, or socials you want to shout out to our lovely viewers and listeners?
Well, I'm currently appearing in Prison Escapes Utrecht, so if you ever fancy coming and having a really intense theatrical live-action role-play experience in a real prison, the Peter Baan Centrum, in the Netherlands, then come and do that, and then go out on a night out in Utrecht or Amsterdam the night after to recover. Other than that, I should give credit again to David Brunt for his cool little facts that he kindly provided with me. And go and buy his production diaries. The Hartnell one's out. There's ebooks and physical version. The physical version is an absolute brick, and it's glorious. I ended up buying both because I couldn't afford the postage to the Netherlands to begin with, so I had it sent to my mum and then bought the ebook as well, so I could read it straight away. It's that good. And the Troughton one's out in January, we think.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out and just in case, but it's certainly one to look out for. Awesome. Yeah, always a pleasure. That's the second time now we've had you on, and it's great guest. I think probably have to have you back again some other time.
That would be lovely. It's been like a chat with friends I've known for decades. You've been lovely. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, same. Even when we disagree, like I said, we managed to get on with each other. So
it's been very civil, even in the disagreeing times. Yes, so.
And we always try to make it, like that. I mean, like I said, it's the vibe we go for is a few friends having drinks down the pub without getting too rowdy. So
it's never reached the point of someone breaking a glass and threatening the other just yet.
There was that one time when you dared to defend Star Trek Picard Season 2 on the Trek podcast, but we'll not go there.
I stand by that. Don't make me get a glass, dude.
I have very strange opinions on Picard. I think every episode 1 of each series is fantastic, and then it just creeps downhill, and the dialogue is abysmal. But I'm just happy to see the old faces at the same time.
Oh yeah. Nostalgia does. I mean, I think I said about season 3, it's clearly fan service, but shit, man, just service me. Why not? It works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome. So and of course, as I've kind of said here, thank you to DK for being the best loyal companion since K9.
I'm the dog.
You're the tin dog.
Yes, thank you, dude. It's always a pleasure, never a chore.
Awesome. And as always, if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to check the links on screen for all our social media, or alternatively, you can always find them in our trusty link tree in the episode description. Don't miss out on the fun. And speaking of fun, next week's episode is going to be a blast. DK is sitting this one out, but I am joined by Will Templar and the power couple themselves, Michael Whaley and Rune, to dive into another Dalek adventure. We'll be reviewing Victory of the Daleks, so it's going to be a good time with some laughs, hot takes, jammy dodgers, and who knows, maybe a Dalek or two that actually win for once. But until then, hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. Like, share, do all that good stuff, and keep traveling, hopefully. And as the Doctor would say, Alonzi.
You've been listening to the Hit or Miss Doctor Who podcast, part of the Hit or Miss Who Trek channel. Hit or Miss Doctor Who is hosted by Mike Wilson and DK. Behind the scenes and additional material by DK, scripted, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. Adapted from an original podcast created by Will Templar. Follow us on YouTube, your podcatcher of choice, and our social media. Links to all of these can be found by clicking on the link tree in the episode descriptions. This podcast is a Media Matters original production. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast through all of time and space. We'll be back for another thrilling TARDIS trip soon, but for now, Doctor, I let you go.